Tyreek Hill, speaking of mysteries that have become solved thanks to episode 1 of It Needed to Be Said, which dropped last Friday, Tyreek Hill said plenty of things that were eye-openers as it relates to why he wanted out of Kansas City and his belief that Tua Tagovailoa is more accurate than Patrick Mahomes. Yesterday, Patrick Mahomes meeting with the media for the first time since Hill's comments came out. Here is what Mahomes had to say about his former teammates' comments.
Are you surprised at all that Tyreek said some of the things he said?
I'm surprised a little just because I feel like we love Tyreek here. We've always loved him. We still love him. I saw him out at Formula One in Miami and everything like that. But, I'm sure it had something to do with trying to get his podcast some stuff and get it rolling. But definitely, I still love Tyreek. He's a one-of-a-kind player. But as you know, in Coach Reid's offense, it takes the whole team. I mean, this offense was rolling before I got here. This offense was rolling when I was a young Cowboy fan watching the Eagles beat up on the Cowboys. So, I mean, it's an offense that's more than one player, and that includes myself.
Have you talked to him at all about it?
I haven't talked to him since the podcast that came out. But, I talked to him at Formula One in Miami in May, and everything seemed fine.
Yeah, look. Patrick Mahomes is going to be diplomatic about this. He's not going to try to make things worse. But at some level, the Chiefs made a strategic decision to move on from Tyreek Hill. Whether it's we don't want Patrick Mahomes to be overly smitten with the deep ball, we want him to learn how to work the underneath areas of the offense a little bit better. And Sims and I talked about that yesterday. Maybe Patrick Mahomes holds on to the ball a little bit longer than he should because he's waiting for Tyreek Hill to get open 60 yards down the field, and he wants to throw that high arcing pass to Tyreek Hill, and now he's going to have to be a little more surgical underneath. Maybe they were worn out by Tyreek Hill's demands for the ball, but they decided to be diplomatic about it and not make it a big deal. But to the extent that Hill talked about his conversations with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes as this was all coming to a head, I think Mahomes is very well aware of why Tyreek Hill isn't there. And they are making, I think, Shireen, a strategic guess that they're going to be okay without him. But who's the guy that's going to command double coverage all the time now with Tyreek Hill not there? They need somebody else to become that weapon who is so potent that defenses begin their process by saying, how are we going to stop Tyreek Hill? They don't have that guy now.
You know what, Patrick Mahomes, he didn't use the words, Mike, but Patrick Mahomes just said that he thought, this is what I got out of it, that Tyreek Hill was using clickbait there. He wanted people to click onto his podcast and listen to his podcast.
Yeah.
But they're going to miss Tyreek Hill, I think. You know, he averaged 86 catches, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns over the last 4 seasons. He was very, very good. This will maybe not open things up, but Travis Kelce is going to become more of a target. He was second in targets last year after Tyreek Hill's 159 targets, but he's going to command the double coverage now. So it's going to be up to some of those receivers that they've gotten in there to kind of do what Tyreek Hill did, and no one else is Tyreek Hill. So we'll see what Patrick Mahomes can do. He's still a great quarterback. I still think this is going to be a very good team, but now it's looking more like maybe some of the Brady years when Brady didn't have all those great receivers, when he didn't have that Randy Moss, the year that Brady threw the 50 touchdowns. But at New England, he really didn't have those great receivers. So this is now kind of what Kansas City reminds me of. But as we talked a lot, Mike, you're getting receivers straight out of college who are coming into the NFL and playing really, really well. They have that in Sky Moore. Maybe he's going to become that guy. They're certainly betting on him being very good this season as a rookie as much as they're going to depend on him. So maybe that was part of the thinking too, that, hey, we don't want to pay this guy. We can get a receiver who's just as good, just as fast. We're going to gamble here that we can win without Tyreek Hill, and that's what they've done, Mike, for whatever reason.
And that's the gamble that the Chiefs made, swapping out Tyreek Hill for Sky Moore and also picking up Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster as free agents. The Packers made that gamble. Devontae Adams out, Christian Watson in. And the Titans have made that gamble with A.J. Brown out and Treylon Burks in, and plenty of indications that Burks is struggling to make the adjustment to the NFL. And I think the Titans took the biggest risk because Adams already had a second contract and was in the NFL for 8 years. Hill's had a second contract, and they've won a Super Bowl with him. For for A.J. Brown, he was 3 years in. You're supposed to want to keep those guys and build around those guys. So that was a hell of a risk that the Titans took. But I think we're going to see more teams do that as more and more great receivers come in every year. The reality is there's no guarantee that the one you get is going to be great. And you may be that team. And inevitably it's going to happen where a team does this, Shireen, and they say, we picked the wrong guy.
Yeah. Well, you look at the Cowboys getting rid of Amari Cooper. That's one now is $20 million. That much with what we've seen with the receiver market that maybe they should have kept Amari Cooper. And I know CeeDee Lamb, they believe he's their number one receiver. Shoot, he was their number one receiver last year. It was just we were talking about Amari Cooper as the number one receiver, but CeeDee Lamb was the guy that led them in catches and yards and all of the important things that we talk about for a number one receiver. That was CeeDee Lamb. So there may already be some regret there with the Cowboys and getting only, by the way, a 5th-round draft pick for Amari Cooper. So, yes, there's going to be that coming, Mike, where these rookies don't live up to what some of these veterans did. And you look at a team like the Vikings that's going to have a decision to make with Justin Jefferson. Are you going to pay Justin Jefferson or are you going to move on from him? But a year ago, we would have said, of course they're going to pay him. But now, after what we've seen this offseason, you don't know what teams are going to do with these receivers. They chose not to pay Stephon Diggs and ended up with Justin Jefferson. So maybe they have the same mindset of we can get a receiver who's just as good or better.
They had paid Diggs. Diggs was more about an anti-Kirk Cousins position. In the day that Cousins got a new contract, that's when Diggs tweeted his way out of Minnesota to Buffalo. You mentioned the 5th-round pick that the Cowboys got for Amari Cooper. They were going to cut him. They were going to cut him if they didn't get a 5th-round pick for him. They were abandoning ship on that $20 million contract that he had for this year. And in hindsight, $20 million for a guy who can do what Amari Cooper does, not a bad deal at all, because the great receivers are getting more and more all the time. One last thing on, you mentioned the clickbait, and that's funny because Patrick Mahomes said, hey, he's trying to get his podcast off the ground. I suspect, and I made the prediction on Monday, 3.5 episodes over under for it needed to be said, and I'm only saying it because it needs to be said. YouTube views can be misleading because, a show like this, we're on Peacock, and a lot of our clips are consumed in significantly high numbers via PFT when we put a clip onto a story there, and 150,000 people see it just there. The only avenue that Tyreek Hill's podcast was available that I know of was YouTube, and it had I checked a couple minutes ago, 57,000 views in a week. He's got to be apoplectic that's all that it did after all the crap that it stirred up. I have a feeling that it needed to be said is not going to be saying many things for very long. He's going to realize that it maybe isn't what he thought it was going to be, and he's going to find a way to back out of it and just focus on football. But we'll see. I hope he keeps doing it. I hope he keeps doing it and saying inflammatory things. It's good for our business. His clickbait is good for our clickbait. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we return, we had a story yesterday about where things may go for Deshaun Watson if and when the union takes up the fight on his behalf, and the potential consequences for a couple of owners if a full-blown fight breaks out between the NFL, the NFLPA over Deshaun Watson. We'll discuss that next on this Friday edition of PFT Live.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.